8-foot alien entered breeding season, and I was the last human standing. The station floated in silence above the dead world. Dust covered every corner and the air was thin and dry, recycled too many times through machines that had long stopped caring for the comfort of those who breathed it. He was the last one left here. The others had gone, some taken by disease, some hunted, some vanished without a trace. He had stopped asking where they had gone. He only knew one thing: he was still alive, and that meant something was waiting for him. Every night he walked the broken halls of the outpost, hearing the creak of metal, the hiss of leaking pipes, and the faint echo of his own boots. The universe had once been filled with voices, laughter, arguments, the ordinary sounds of life. Now there was nothing but his breath and the hollow groan of the station's skeleton shifting. He told himself he was alone, but deep down he knew he was not. It began with the ground trembling. A soft shudder at first, then a deeper rumble, like the heart of the planet was waking up. He froze, gripping the cold steel of a doorway, his eyes fixed on the shadows that stretched too long under the flickering lights. No storm shook the sky outside. No quake tore the land below. This was something else, something alive. When he looked out across the barren wasteland from the broken glass windows, he saw movement. At first it seemed like smoke curling under the twin moons. Then it stepped forward, a figure tall, heavy, the glow of its skin faint but steady. It was not like the others he had seen in records. This one was larger, taller than any soldier he had known. 8 feet at least, its limbs long and strong, its eyes reflecting the light of the moons like mirrors. The breath caught in his chest. He knew what it was. The species had been spoken of in whispers long ago, back when humans still believed in safe colonies and unbroken treaties. They were not predators in the way beasts were predators. They did not kill for food or fight for land. They had something older in them, something stranger. Every few cycles, their kind entered a state no human could fully understand. A season where instinct ruled, where the drive to breed overcame everything else. In that season, they sought out partners, not always from their own kind. He pulled back from the window, his heart racing so hard it shook his body. He was the only one left here. If the stories were true, then he was what the creature had come for. The thought made his throat dry. Was he prey? Was he chosen? Was there a difference? The lights above him flickered, and in the silence he could hear its steps now, slow and deliberate, echoing across the stone and metal of the ruined outpost. He backed away, clutching the sidearm that had not been fired in months. The weapon felt like a toy in his hands. Against a creature like that, it would mean nothing. Still, he held it tight, the only thing separating him from helplessness. He tried to move quietly, slipping down into the tunnels that stretched beneath the station. They were dark and damp, the air carrying the stench of rust and mold. He pressed himself against the wall, listening. At first he thought he had lost it. Then he heard it again. Not the sound of footsteps, but something deeper. The rhythm of breathing, steady and heavy, too close to be imagined. His chest burned as he realized it was not tracking him by sound. It was something else, something pulling it toward him no matter where he went. A pull he could almost feel himself, like invisible strings tied between them, drawing tighter with every step he took. When he wiped his face with the back of his hand, he froze. The skin on his wrist glowed faintly, a dim pattern rising just beneath the flesh. He stared at it in horror. It pulsed in time with the sound of the alien's breath. The tunnels were no longer safe. Every shadow stretched like claws. Every drip of water sounded like a signal betraying him. He tried to run, but the further he went, the stronger the pull grew, until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. He stumbled into a chamber lined with old crates and broken machines, his lungs burning, sweat soaking through his shirt. And then he saw it. Standing at the far end, its body filling the space, head nearly scraping the ceiling, eyes glowing with that strange mirrored light. Its chest rose and fell with slow, powerful breaths, and when it exhaled, the air shimmered with heat. For a moment it did not move. It simply watched him, its gaze heavy and unblinking as if measuring his very existence. The weapon shook in his hand. He wanted to raise it, to fire, to scream, but his arm would not move. His legs refused to obey. Something inside him was already bound to it, caught in a tide that he could not fight. The silence pressed down like a weight, broken only by the sound of his heart and the alien's breath, sinking together in a rhythm that felt older than the stars. In that moment, he understood. He was not being hunted for death. He was being chosen for something far worse. The chamber was silent, but silence could not hide the tension that filled it. His body was frozen in place, his lungs struggling for breath, his weapon trembling in his hand as though it wanted to leap away. The alien stood there, towering and still, its mirrored eyes fixed on him with a focus so complete it felt like time itself had stopped. For a heartbeat, he thought it might attack. Instead, it stepped forward, slow, heavy, deliberate. Each footfall shook the floor, echoing through the tunnels like a drumbeat that matched his pulse. Panic broke through his paralysis. He turned and ran, boots slamming against the metal floor. The sidearm clutched so tightly his fingers ached. He could hear it behind him, not running, not rushing, just following. Its steps were slow, confident, unhurried. The certainty of a predator that knew its prey could not escape. He darted into a corridor lined with broken pipes, the air filled with the hiss of steam and the smell of rust. His breath was loud in his ears, too loud. He forced himself to slow it, to move quietly, but the glowing mark on his wrist betrayed him. It pulsed brighter, stronger, each beat in rhythm with the alien's steady approach. It did not matter how careful he was. It was being drawn to him, pulled as though by invisible chains that tied their bodies together. He pressed his back against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. The mark on his skin was not just light, it was heat, faint but steady, sinking deeper into his flesh. He rubbed at it furiously as if he could erase it, but it burned against his palm, alive in a way skin should never be. The alien's shadow slid into view at the far end of the corridor. He forced himself to stay still. Maybe if he did not move, if he stayed silent enough, it would pass. But the shadow grew larger, closer until it filled the wall beside him. He could feel the air shift with the weight of its breath. He pushed himself away from the wall and ran again. The tunnels twisted and turned, a maze he had explored 100 times before, but now every turn felt unfamiliar. Panic blurred memory. He stumbled over debris, scraped his arm against jagged metal, barely noticed the blood streaking his sleeve. He just kept moving because the moment he stopped, he could feel it behind him again, closer than before, as though distance meant nothing. He reached the old lift shaft and threw himself inside. The cables had long since snapped, but a ladder still clung to one wall, rusted and broken in places. He began to climb, ignoring the pain in his hands as rust cut into his skin. Higher, higher, until his arms burned and his lungs begged for air. When he looked down, he saw it. The alien was not climbing. It was rising, its body moving as though the air itself carried it upward. Its glowing skin lit the shaft and its eyes never left him. He scrambled higher, frantic, until he pulled himself out into the upper hall. The shaft yawned open behind him, but when he turned, it was empty. The alien had not followed. For a moment, relief washed over him. He dropped against the wall, dragging air into his chest, his body trembling with exhaustion. Maybe he had escaped. Maybe the creature had lost interest, or perhaps it could not leave the lower tunnels. But the mark on his wrist still burned, brighter now, the glow spreading faintly up his forearm. He bit back a curse and pushed himself to his feet. If the mark was a tether, then escape was an illusion. He moved through the hall, trying to think, trying to plan. He needed answers, needed to understand why the alien was here, why it had chosen him. If he could find something, anything about its kind, maybe he could use it. The station had archives, records from the early days when humans first landed here. Most had been abandoned when people began to vanish, but some databanks might still hold fragments. He made his way toward the control wing, the largest chamber left intact. The doors were half broken, hanging on their hinges. He slipped inside and froze. The alien was already there. It stood in the center of the room, its head bowed slightly, its glowing hands brushing against the old machines. Its eyes lifted the moment he entered, and a low sound rumbled from its chest. Not anger, not a threat, something stranger. A call that resonated in the air and in his bones. The weapon in his hand felt useless. His wrist burned so hot he nearly dropped it. The glow on his skin pulsed in rhythm with the sound the alien made, like two voices singing the same note. He staggered back, shaking his head, desperate to break free of it. But when he looked at the alien, he saw something that stole the breath from his lungs. Its chest glowed faintly, the same pattern as the mark on his arm. He realized with horror that he was not being tracked. He was being called. He bolted again, his body acting before his mind could. He ran through the control wing, smashing through a side door into another stretch of corridors. Behind him, the sound grew louder. Not footsteps this time, not the steady beat of pursuit, but the low, resonant hum that pulled at his blood. The chase was no longer about speed. It was about inevitability. No matter where he ran, no matter how far he went, the alien would always find him, because it was not just hunting him. It was bound to him and he to it. He stumbled into the records chamber, his chest burning, his shirt soaked with sweat. The old archive smelled of dust and oil, the kind of place no one had touched in years. Rows of cracked monitors lined the walls, some shattered, some still humming faintly with weak blue light. He slammed the door shut behind him, knowing it would not stop the alien but needing even the illusion of a barrier. His body shook as he leaned against the cold metal, listening. For now the echo of its steps was gone. He dropped to his knees and pulled open a terminal. His fingers shook as he tapped at the broken keys, but the system stirred. Lines of fractured data crawling across the screen. Most files were corrupted, eaten by time and neglect. But here and there fragments remained. Reports, journals, desperate notes left behind by those who had once studied this world. At first the words made no sense. Symbols, numbers, dates. Then a sentence caught his eye. Human compatibility confirmed. Binding process irreversible once initiated. His heart hammered as he scrolled through more fragments. Words like breeding cycle, genetic key, chosen vessel flickered across the display. He froze when he found a recording still intact, the audio crackling with static. A voice, calm and clinical, spoke. The species cannot continue without us. Their cycle demands a partner, and their biology has identified human DNA as essential. Without humans, they collapse. Without them, we may too. Cooperation is survival, though at what cost I cannot say. He felt cold even as sweat dripped from his brow. His glowing wrist throbbed in time with his heartbeat. This was no accident. The alien was not chasing him because it wanted him. It needed him. His body, his blood. Something in him had been locked into their ancient rhythm. Something written into history long before he was born. The memory of the alien's eyes, unblinking and full of strange light, stabbed through his mind. He remembered the way it had not rushed him, had not struck him down. It could have killed him at any moment. But it had not. Instead, it had only come closer, step by step, as though it had all the time in the world. He pushed away from the terminal, clutching his arm as the glow spread further, curling up his veins like fire. The truth sank in like a knife. He was not running from a predator. He was running from a bond that was already in place, one that had been waiting for him the moment he was born into this dead outpost. The door shuddered. Dust fell from its frame. A low hum seeped through the walls, filling the room like a fog. The alien was here again. He scrambled toward the far wall where a reinforced case stood buried beneath debris. With shaking hands, he ripped it open and pulled out an old data tablet. Its screen cracked but still alive. It flickered with diagrams. Humans and aliens, their bodies outlined in pale blue. Lines connecting them like threads of a web. Words scrolled beneath: shared pulse, shared heat, shared breath. His stomach twisted as he scrolled further. In breeding season, distance is irrelevant. The chosen will always feel the call. Resistance accelerates the bond. Acceptance stabilizes it. He dropped the tablet, his breath shallow, his vision spinning. If the words were true, then his running was only making things worse. Every step he took to escape only drew the alien closer, tightening the bond. The door groaned again. He grabbed the sidearm at his hip. Though he already knew what good it would do. He could shoot it, maybe even slow it, but what if the bond did not die with the body? What if it was already inside him, spreading with every pulse of his glowing veins? The lights flickered out. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Then slowly the room lit again, not from the broken monitors, but from the glow of the alien's body as it stepped inside. It moved differently this time. Not like a hunter, not even like a beast. Its massive frame lowered as it stepped closer, its movements deliberate, almost reverent. Its eyes found him instantly, the mirrored glow locking onto his trembling form. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating in his bones. His wrist burned like a brand. He wanted to scream, wanted to fight, but his voice caught in his throat. The alien raised a hand, and for the first time he saw its claws tremble, not with rage, but with restraint. It stopped a few feet from him, lowering itself until it was almost at eye level. For a long moment, neither moved. He saw himself reflected in its mirrored eyes, small, fragile, human. Then for the first time, it made a sound that was not a hum. A word, broken but clear, forced through a throat not built for his language. Chosen. The word rattled through him like thunder. His knees buckled, his weapon slipping from his grip. His heart screamed in denial, but his blood answered the call. He wanted to deny it, to run again, but the glow spreading through his arm betrayed him. It was not just inside the alien. It was inside him now, inescapable. He staggered back, hitting the wall, his breath ragged. The alien did not advance. It waited, watching him as though giving him a choice that was not a choice at all. In that suffocating silence, surrounded by the broken ruins of a forgotten outpost, he understood. This was not the story of survival. This was not the hunt of predator and prey. This was something far older, far stranger, and far more terrifying. He was not being followed. He was being bound. The word lingered in the air like smoke, heavy and undeniable. Chosen. He had heard it once, clear as thunder, and now it echoed inside his head as though it had always been there, waiting to be spoken. His body shook, his mind screamed for escape, but his veins betrayed him with every glowing pulse that spread up his arm and into his chest. The alien stayed crouched in the dark, its massive body lit only by the faint glow radiating from its skin, 8 feet of muscle and bone, yet there was no strike, no roar, no violence. Instead it waited, breathing slow, controlled, as if it understood his fear. Its mirrored eyes held him without blinking, reflecting his trembling frame back at him. He wanted to raise his weapon, to fire, to prove that he was still human, still free. But his hand refused to obey. The sidearm lay useless on the ground where he had dropped it, and even if he could pick it up, he knew it would be nothing more than a spark against a storm. The alien tilted its head, the faint hum in its chest deepening. The sound resonated in the walls, the floor, and in his bones. He clutched his wrist, trying to smother the glow beneath his skin, but the harder he pressed, the brighter it flared, matching the rhythm of the creature's heartbeat. His pulse was no longer his own. The silence broke when the alien reached forward. Not fast, not violent. Just a slow extension of its hand, long fingers ending in claws that trembled as though even this small motion cost it restraint. It did not touch him. It stopped inches from his chest, close enough that he felt the heat radiating from its skin. The air between them quivered, thick and heavy, as if the bond itself lived in the space their bodies had not yet closed. He gasped, stumbling sideways, pressing his back against the wall. "Stay back," he whispered, though his voice sounded weak even to his own ears. The alien froze, its hand still suspended in the air. Its chest rose and fell with a rumble that was almost a sigh. It lowered its arm slowly, deliberately, as if showing mercy. For a moment he thought he could escape. He pushed himself along the wall, edging toward the broken door. But when he moved, the mark on his arm blazed so brightly it burned. His body buckled under the heat, his knees striking the floor. Pain spread through his veins like fire, and he realized with horror that his own resistance was feeding the bond, tightening it, making it stronger. The alien stepped closer. He wanted to crawl away, but his body betrayed him. His breaths came in shallow gasps, his heart hammering not with his own rhythm, but with the rhythm the alien set. The hum deepened until it was more than sound. It was vibration, a command written into the air. The alien leaned lower until its face was level with his, its eyes shining like twin mirrors. He saw not hunger in them, but something worse. Need. A raw, undeniable force that had nothing to do with choice. This was instinct, ancient and unbreakable. It made another sound, softer this time, but still in his language, broken and heavy. "Bind!" The word tore through him, and he shook his head violently. "No," he whispered, though the mark on his arm flared in betrayal. The alien did not move to strike or seize him. Instead, it lowered itself further until it was kneeling. 8 feet of towering power brought down low before him. Its head bowed, its hand pressed against the ground. It was not a hunter's stance. It was something else, submission or perhaps a plea. The realization left him breathless. It could take him by force, tear him apart, end his life in seconds. Yet it did not. Instead, it offered him this, an invitation as if waiting for him to decide what came next. But he knew there was no decision. The bond already lived inside him. His body burned with it, his blood carried it. Refusal was just another way of surrendering, slower, crueler. He forced himself to his feet, swaying on unsteady legs. The alien lifted its head, watching him rise, its mirrored eyes never leaving his. The glow in its chest pulsed brighter. syncing perfectly with the light in his veins. Step by step he moved closer, drawn not by will but by inevitability. When he stood within reach, the alien raised its hand again, this time slower, gentler. He did not pull away. He could not. The claws stopped just above his wrist, hovering where the glow was brightest, and then, with a care that contradicted every fearsome part of its body, it touched him. Heat surged through him, blinding in its intensity. His vision blurred, his breath caught, and for a heartbeat he thought he would die. But then he realized it was not pain. It was merging. His glow and its glow flared together, fusing into one rhythm, one pulse. The bond was no longer a distant thread. It was a chain woven into his very being. He staggered, collapsing forward, but the alien caught him, cradling him with strength that was terrifying in its gentleness. Its chest rumbled with a sound he almost understood, a language older than stars. For the first time he saw something beyond the fear. In its mirrored eyes he saw sorrow, desperation, and perhaps a kind of hope. But the hope was not his. It was theirs. His body shivered in its grip, his breath shallow, his mind torn between resisting and surrendering. One thought cut through the storm, sharp and final. He was no longer the last human. He was the first of something else. The alien's arms held him in a grip that felt both like a prison and a shield. Its body radiated heat, so close that he could feel the rhythm of its pulse against his own chest. The glow in his veins burned brighter than ever. A tide he could not push back no matter how he fought. He wanted to scream, to force air into words of defiance, but his voice broke before sound could rise. All that remained was the silence of surrender, stretched thin by the thunder of two hearts beating as one. The alien's head lowered, its mirrored eyes locking onto his face. He stared into them, hoping to see some trace of malice, some proof that this was nothing more than a monstrous hunger. But he saw something worse. He saw desperation, a longing so raw it cut deeper than any blade. This was not the look of a predator nor of a conqueror. It was the look of a dying race clawing at survival through him. The bond was not simply choice. It was destiny. He remembered the words from the records. Resistance accelerates the bond. Acceptance stabilizes it. He had resisted with every step, and yet here he stood, more bound than ever. His body was no longer his own. The glow in his veins now reached his chest, pulsing in rhythm with the alien's core. The alien leaned closer, its massive frame trembling with a restraint that looked painful. Its claws hovered above his chest, then pressed lightly against his sternum. The touch was careful, precise, but even that slight contact sent shockwaves through him. He gasped as the world blurred, images flashing in his mind that were not his own. He saw their world, lush and alive once, filled with towering spires of glass and light, their kind moving in harmony beneath strange skies. He saw the collapse, their numbers thinning, their cycles failing, their voices fading into silence. Then he saw the humans, the first chosen, the bonds forged long ago in secret agreements between species. For centuries the two had intertwined unseen, carrying each other forward. But now humanity was gone, wiped from colony after colony, and he was all that remained. When the vision faded, his body ached with the weight of it. The alien's claws still rested lightly against his chest, but now he understood. It was not trying to break him. It was showing him why. He staggered back, wrenching free from its hold. His legs shook, his chest burned, but he forced the words past his dry throat. Why me? His voice cracked, raw with fear and fury. Why am I the last? The alien tilted its head, struggling with the shape of his language. It rumbled low, then forced another word through its throat, jagged and broken but clear enough. Survive. The sound nearly dropped him to his knees. Survive. That was all this was. Not desire, not malice, not conquest. Survival. For them, for their kind, and now in some twisted way for him too. But survival at what cost? He could feel it already, the glow reaching higher into his skull, seeping into the corners of his mind. His thoughts tangled. His memories slipped like water through his fingers. The bond was not just physical. It was rewriting him, turning him into something caught between human and alien. If he allowed it, he would no longer be himself. He would become part of them. The alien stepped back, lowering its body once again into a kneel. It bowed its head, placing one massive hand flat against the floor, waiting, offering. It could have taken him by force, could have ripped the choice from his hands. Instead, it gave him this, An illusion of control, or perhaps a real one. The last choice he would ever make as a human. He staggered, clutching his chest, torn between two deaths. If he refused, the bond would consume him anyway, burning him alive from the inside until there was nothing left but ash. If he accepted, he would survive, but he would no longer be just himself. He would become part of a cycle older than he could comprehend, the vessel for a race that would not let go of its survival. His eyes closed, his breath ragged. He remembered faces, voices, laughter from long ago, when there had been other humans. He remembered how it felt to be one of many, not the last, and then he opened his eyes to the alien, kneeling, trembling, waiting. His hand shook as he raised it, the glow in his veins flaring so bright it lit the chamber. The alien's chest pulsed in answer, heat rising, the hum deepening until it filled the air. His fingertips touched the creature's skin. For a moment, silence. Then the bond snapped shut. A surge of heat roared through him, blinding and unstoppable. He screamed, but the sound was swallowed in the light that poured from their joined bodies. His veins burned, his mind cracked open, and for a heartbeat he thought he was dying. But then the fire shifted, became steady, became whole. His pulse steadied with the alien's, no longer two rhythms but one. When the light faded, he collapsed to his knees, trembling, breathless. The alien reached forward, steadying him with surprising gentleness. He looked up into its mirrored eyes and saw himself reflected, but not the man he had been. Something had changed, something irreversible. He was no longer the last human. He was the bridge. The alien leaned close, its voice a rumble of both relief and grief. Together, the words sealed it. He was not prey. He was not free. He was chosen, bound, and remade, humanity's last ember, folded into the survival of a race far older and far more desperate. And in the silence that followed, as the twin moons poured light through the broken station windows, he knew that his choice had not been an end. It was the beginning of something darker, stranger, and far beyond his control.